So hi guys, in this video we are going to build a book library. As we can see here, this is the home page and then we can view the details here and we can also change this, edit this. Let's say it says John, edit book. It just goes back to the home page with edited content and we can add a book if we want and we can also delete a book by clicking here. So this is what we are going to build. The stack we are going to use is that Next.js along with DynamoDB to store our data, and we will use Lambda functions to do the CRUD operations, and along with we will use the API Gateway of AWS to trigger our Lambda functions. Before we start, let's go through the way that our application works. First, a server action from Next.js will send a request to the API Gateway based on the user's need. Then the API Gateway will trigger the Lambda function, which will do the required CRUD operations for us with the DynamoDB. Now, how are we going to build this? First, we will create the Next.js with our UI, and then we will create a table inside our DynamoDB. After creating the table, we will write a Lambda function to do the CRUD operations. Then we will create the API gateway, which triggers the Lambda function. And finally, we'll write our server actions to send or receive data from our database. Yeah, that's it. It's just a simple application. If you want a written guide for this, I have created a blog post on this very same topic. You can find it in the description below. If you want the code to refer, I have also added a GitHub link in the description below. If you get any errors along the way, put them on the comments below. I'll be sure to help you out if I can. Let's start building this. I have created a simple Next.js app with the following options. You can see it has the default UI now. Let's do a little cleanup here. In global.css, I'm just gonna remove everything except these three Tailwind classes. And in page.asx, let's remove everything and add a new div here saying hello world with a class name of min height of screen. Let's just remove this. I'm just going to close the terminal for now. In tailwind config.ts, we need to add a few colors here. So let's just remove these two. Text hyphen color is going to be hash of 0 f2128, and we are going to add two more colors here. Text hover and button color. So btn color. For text hour, we have 162832. You can have any color you want, 023047. So if you are already running the server like npm run dev, be sure to restart it once you change the config. So inside of layout.tsx, here we need to add two more things. One is bg blue 100. So our background is bg blue 100 and text should be of text color. Yeah, we don't have to change anything else here. Let's keep it as simple as possible. Let's see how the UI looks. We can see we have a little change in the background color, but we can't see anything else since we don't have any content right now. Now let's start building our UI. First, we will create an interface for our books. So I'm just gonna create a types.ts file in the home directory. Export interface iBook. We are going to have an ID here, number, title of string, author of string, price of number, and description of string. Okay, now inside our page.tsx, first we need to create a header, right? So let's go with creating the header. Let's create a component folder now. Components with header.tsx. Header.tsx. Okay. Yeah, RFCE. Let's change this to header. Here we will add our title like the book library and two nav links, one for the home page, another to add the book. Let's create a h1 tag here with book library and nav with ul. Li will have a link tag of link from next link with href to the home page. Home And let's copy this again. Add book. Let's import this in the page.tsx. Header. Let's try and run this now. npm run dev. Yeah, we can see our data here. Now we need to add our styling to it. Make sure to type add here in the href of the add book. The class name for the header will be, let's use a flex here. Flex justify between items center py of 6 and px of 10 with the shadow md. And for our h1, let's go with text 3xl and font bold. In our ul, let's add flex and space x of 6. Inline class name is equal to flex. Item center. Yeah, in link, let's add a class name for hover. Text should be text hover. We have added this text hover in our tailwind.config.ts. As we can see here, the add book will look like a button. So let's just wrap this link within a button. So button, and in this button, let's add our class name of py of 2, px of 4, bg button color, text of white, rounded, and hover, bg text hover, transition, duration of 200. Let's see your site now. The UI is not working. Why? So make sure you create the data.tsx inside the component folder. So the Tailwind CSS only works inside the certain folders. We can see it in the config file here, inside the pages folder or the app folder or in the component folder. So it won't work in any other files. If you want, you can add it here and it will work there, but let's just keep it in the components folder. Now we can see it works now. Okay, now we have added our header. Let's create our cards now. As we can see here, let me just close this again. Yeah, after the header, let's create a main tag with class name of py of 12 and px of 8. Inside that, let's have our h2 explore our collections. And for h2, let's add the class name with text 4xl and font semi bold and margin bottom of 8. So after our header, let's have a div. So this div will wrap all our cards here. So we will create a single card in our components and we will map through it. So here class name grid, grid calls 1 in md screens, grid calls 2 in lg. Let's go with grid calls 3 and gap of 8. Yeah, so we need some data to create our collection, right? So let me just create some data here. Const books, which will be of types iBook from our types, an array of it equal to. Okay, let me just copy some data here. So inside an array. So I have added like data of 2 books here. We can see another here since we don't have a description here. I'm just gonna keep the title as our description also. Yeah. This is just temporary to build up a UI. We will connect it with the DynamoDB. Now that we have our books, let's map through it. So inside this div, books.map, which will get a book and IDX. Here we will have a book card here, which we are going to create. Key will be key with small k, IDX, and book will be a book. Yeah, let's create this now. So inside our components folder, I'm just gonna create bookcard.tsx rfce. So this book card is going to get our book inside. So book which will be of type. So here it's a book, iBook. Yeah. Now we will get the parameter inside, and if we just import it here, fix. Yeah, we won't see an error here. Let's add a class name here, P6 BG slate of 100 rounded LG shadow LG. Inside this, okay, let's create our title with h3 book.title, class name text to Excel, font semi bold, a p tag for our author, so by, and then let's add our curly braces, book.author. So in p tag, let's add our class name text LG and text gray of 600. Let's add our price here inside a div. Margin top of 2, text Excel and font bold. Let's add a view button here. So if you can see this view button and the add book here as the same element, so we're just going to copy it from there. So inside our header, we'll have a button here. I'm just going to copy this and paste it below this. And make sure you import the link from next link. Yeah, instead of add, we'll forward it to the ID of the book. So use backticks here, slash dollar curly braces book.id and view book. I think we are done here. Let's see the UI now. Yeah, we can see that we have created a UI. I think we have to add a little more padding here. Let's just add empty of 4. Yeah, now it looks good. Now when we click this page, we'll be forwarded to an ID page here, which we are going to create now. In the app directory, let's create a folder with square brackets, ID, and a page.tsx in it. Let me just close all the other pages. So if we see here, when I click on this view details, we can see that we are getting this page like the edit book. So we are just going to view the details, and if we want, we can just edit it directly here, and we can also delete it here. So we need some kind of user interactions here. So we are just going to use client RFCE. Let's give it a name like book page. Here we need to get our ID from the params, which is going to be of type params. It will have an ID inside with a type number. We will use two states here. One state is to hold the book and the next state is to hold if there is any errors. Const book set book will be equal to use state of type iBook. I don't know why it's showing like this, or null. In starting it will be like a null. Let me just import it. Fix. No, we don't need to import this here. Same goes for our error set error. So it can be a string or null. Yeah. So once we build our server action and everything, we will use an use effect to get our data. So we'll just write it now. Use effect. Make sure you're importing it. Right now, let's just mimic it. We are going to fetch a book here, which is equal to, let me just copy one of the books here in page.tsx. I'm just gonna copy this. Yeah, so it will be like we have fetched a book right now, and we will set this book inside our state. So Yeah, the one thing is that we will be using async here, but we can't just use it like this. So we need to wrap this inside a function. Okay, so let's name it to fetch the book. So it will be like we have fetched the book, and let's create a function called fetch book. Inside here, const fetch book will be equal to async. Yeah, let's put this inside there. We need to call the fetch book here. Yeah, and we need to add our dependency here, which will be our ID param.id. Params.id. Yeah, we have created our use effect. Now let's create the page. So it will have a min height of screen, and we need to add in our header here too. So header. So let's say if this works. So when I click on learning to fly, yeah, we can see our page here with the particular ID. We don't have any data yet. We will add it now. Yeah, we will have a form here to view the data, and they can edit in that form. They can also delete it. Before the form, we'll need to add some text for our errors. So let's say we have an error now. So instead of null, this is a error below our header. Error two ampersands. Then we will have a div here to display our error. So let's add a class name here, margin y of 5, width full, max width will be LG, mx auto, bg red 400, padding of 4, rounded LG. Let's see now. So now we have an error here with this string. So if we go to the UI, we can see the error here. So if we get any error in the form, we'll just show it here. Now let me just change it back to null. Now let's build a form now. So we will have two forms here. One to edit the form. So this will be in one form and this delete button will be in another form. So below our error, let's create a parenthesis books. If there is a book, then we will show that inside a div. If not, then we will add a div saying loading so that the user won't be seeing a blank screen. Inside this book, let's add a form here. So this form will have a class name of my of 5, width of full, max width of LG, mx of auto, and let's add in our title h2, headed book, class name, text of 2XL, font of bold, MB6. Now we need four fields now, the title, author, price and description. So let's create a div. So we will have a title here, div, class name of margin bottom 4, label, title. So the HTML for will be title and the class name will be block, font semi bold. Yeah. And we will have an input here. So type will be text and the ID will be title. Let's have the name also as title. Yeah, the value will be book dot title, and then in order for the edit to work we need to have an on change function here which we will create here, handle change. We have to create this function. Okay, after on change we'll have a placeholder, enter book title. Let's make it required, and we'll add our class name here also. Class name will be width of full, padding 2, margin top of 2, border rounded MD. So focus, the outline should be none, and focus ring of 2, and we'll change the ring color here. Focus ring of text color. Let's create our handle change. So after our error, const handle change will be equal to an arrow function. It will take in parameter of e, which is the event of the form. So react dot change event HTML input elements. Make sure you have the HTML in capital, or it can be in text area. HTML text area element. From our E, we will need to take in our name and the value, name and value. So name will be this side, like the ID, title, description, and the value will be the particular values. So this function will be triggered every single time we make a change to any of the fields below. If the book exists, then we will create a new book. Const new book will be of type iBook, which will be same as our book with one field different, that is our name. Here we have to do one thing is that we don't have to care about ID since it is not going to change, but other fields are string here except for our price. So here we need to like compare one thing. So name is equivalent to price. If it is equal to price, we will pass that string into float. Otherwise, we will just keep it as a string. So parse float value or just the value. And then we will set this new book as our book. So set book will be our new book. Yeah, we have written our handle change function. Let's create our other elements here. I'm just gonna copy this and paste this again. Here it will be author, author, author. Enter author's name. We have our author now. Let's create our price. Price and price. I'm just gonna use Control D here. Price. Make sure you change the type to number. Enter book price. Yeah. Next for our description. Description. Oh, Control D here. Enter book description. Here instead of input field, let's have a text area. So we don't need a type here since text area is the default type of text. But we need to say we have a minimum number of rows. We don't have to say that, but the UI will be constant across the site. Yeah, we have created our form here. Let's add in a button to submit this form. So let's create a button with edit book. So type will be submit and class name will be with full py of 3 bg btn color text white rounded hover will be bg text hover transition duration of 200 Yeah, now we need to write a function to submit our form. So here in form, let's write a on submit here, on submit. Let's keep it like handle edit submit. Let's create a function above. Yeah, after handle change, const. This will be an async arrow function. We'll take a parameter e form event react dot form event. First, we will prevent the defaults. So e dot prevent default. So let's add in a try catch block here. So if we catch any error, let's set our error as failed to edit book. So here we will call the server action to update our book. Yeah, let's add in like a to do here, update book. And after that, we need to push the user to the home page. For that, we will use a router. So let's create a router here. Const router is equal to use router. Make sure you're importing it from next navigation. Yeah, router dot push to the home page. So after we push it to the home page, we will refresh the page. Router dot refresh. So the home page will be refreshed again. So we will get our data, new data. We can also use context inside our site to improve performance, to less the number of requests we are sending it to the server. But this tutorial, let's just make things simple by refreshing the site alone. We don't have to deal with the complex coding things. Yeah, looks like our form is ready. We will see it in the UI. We can see we have a form here just like this. So let's just create our delete button here. After our edit form, we'll create a new form to delete it. On submit, we'll have like just like the same one here. So for this form we add handle edit submit. So let's go with handle delete submit. Okay, handle delete submit. Yeah, we'll create that function now. So we'll add in a class name of my of 5, width of full, max width of LG, and MX auto. The button will be like the same here, same as our edit button. So I'm just gonna copy this, and we will have only this button inside this form, delete book. Yeah, so we will change the BG of this button to rate of 700, and while hovering we'll change it to rate of 600. 600. And now let's create this function. Let me just keep this function closed. So after our handle edit submit, we'll have our handle delete submit. Const handle delete submit will be equal to async of e, which will be a react.form event. Make sure you're spelling everything right. We'll have the same try catch like here with the e.prevent default too. Yeah, we'll do the same thing. So we will delete our book and we will push it to the home page and refresh the home page. The error failed to delete book. So now that we have the delete also done, we will look at in the UI. And now we can see we have a edit book and delete book, which should not work now since we haven't created our server actions. So if I click on edit book, it will just pass on to the home page. Same goes for the delete page. Now let's create our add page. In our app directory, we'll create a folder called add. Inside that, we will create a page.tsx. So let me just close the other pages for now. R of CE. Add page. So this page will also look like our edit page but without the data and without the delete form. So let's add use client here. Use client. We need to create a use state for our book. So book set book use state. So will be of type iBook from types. So initially we'll have an empty objects like our title will be empty, author will be empty, price, let's keep it as 0, description, description will be empty. So we need to add an ID here too. Here let's generate a random ID, a 4-digit ID. So every time the user comes to add a page, sorry, to add a book, we will generate a random ID. So when they submit, that ID will be used there. Math.floor, so 1000 plus math dot random. So this will give a number. The math dot random will give a number between 0 and 1. We will just multiply it with 9000 and add it with our thousands and floor it. We will get a unique 4-digit number. Add a comma here. Yeah, we have our basic book data here. The class name is going to be min height of screen, and we will add our header here. Header. We will have the same kind of form from our edit page there. So I'm just gonna copy that form here. Make sure you are copying this first form with edit book, and let's just paste it below here. We need to copy this handle change too. So it is also the same since we are using the same names here like set book and stuff. So handle change. Now instead of handle edit submit, we'll have handle submit, which will be also same like this since we don't have the passive action yet. So I'm just going to copy this too. Handle submit. Now we need to recreate our router. So here const router is equal to use router. From next navigation, we need to create a state for error too. Okay, const error set error will be an use state string or null, which will be null by default. Let's add our error here too. So if we go here, this error part, yeah, now we have our header and the form to submit. So here let's just change it to add book and title, author, price, description, and here let's just add book. Now let's see how the viewer works. Yeah, now if I click add button here, we can see we have a form ready. If I just click on add book, it says to fill the book. Yeah, I'm just gonna fill in some data here. So if I click this, it will add the book and forward it to the home page. So we just have to write our server actions now. We have all our pages ready. So now let's go on to AWS. Once you're logged into your console, let's open up DynamoDB. Dynamo. Yeah. Click on create table and let's keep the table as books library. You can have any name you want. Make sure you remember that. So we'll use the partition key as ID with type as number. We don't have to see anything else. Click on create table. Yeah, while it's being created, let's go to our lambda now. So search for lambda. Once you are inside your lambda, click on dashboard or functions and then click on create function. So here I'm just going to name it like book library with L as capital and lambda. Node.js 20. So here in change default execution role, we are going to create a new role from a template. So we can just write it like books library role. So make sure you are selecting the simple microservice permissions. This makes sure that we have all the permissions to do the CRUD operations with the DynamoDB. Yeah, and then click on create function. Now we have Lambda ready. We need to write the code here to do the CRUD operations. I'm just gonna paste the code here. Yeah, I will explain this code in a bit. You can get this code in the GitHub link below. So let me just add it to the repo now. So you don't have to create the file here. I'm just gonna create a file here called lambda.js. So I'm just gonna copy the code here. You can just copy this code and paste it there. So this imports the required functions from the AWS SDK. We'll have a DynamoDB client and the document client with the CRUD operation commands. So scan command, put command and everything. And we are creating a client object here. Make sure to change to your table name. So change to your table name here. So the getBook function will use the get command and the table name from here, and it will use the ID to get our particular book. So if we have our book, it will return the item. Otherwise, it will send a JSON with message of not found. The scan command will return all the books here. So the putBook will use the put command to create the book inside our DynamoDB. So it will take in the ID, price, author, title, everything. Same goes for the delete. It will use the delete command to delete the book. So you can see the code is repeated multiple times with the change of this command name alone. That's why I just pasted the code here. So this is the important part here. So this is the starting point in our Lambda function. So this handler is where the request will be taken, and we have a body, status code and header created in the start, which we will send it to the client. So we have covered this inside a try catch block. So we will try something. If we have our error, we will catch that error and we will change the status code as 400, and we will put the error message as the body, and finally we will stringify that body, and then we will return those three to our client. So inside our try, we can say that we have a switch statement here which takes in like event.route key. So this route key will be handled automatically between the AWS API Gateway. We don't have to worry about that. I will show you in a minute how it will look in the while testing the Lambda function. So if we get with an ID, we are going to get the book. If we are getting all the books, get all books, put and books. This is like the route we are going to build. So delete book and that particular ID, it will delete the particular book. And if we get any other route, it will say unsupported route. Let me just make this full screen, zoom in a bit. I don't need. Make sure you add in your table name here. So books library is my table name. So once you have done all your changes, make sure you click on deploy. Okay, now we will test it out. So for testing, we need to configure our test event first. So we will try to get all the books now. So for now, here we will have one parameter here, that is our route key. Route key will be like get books, which will get all the books for us. We just need to save. Make sure you give a name here. Now if we click on this down arrow, we can see we have text here. Click on that. Click on test. Yeah, we have a 400 request with requested resource not found. I think I have the correct table name here. Deployed test. So now we can see we have our status code as 200 and we are getting a body of empty since we don't have any data here. So I had my table name wrong before. So make sure you have your correct table name. So once you have saved everything, click on deploy. Otherwise, it will be running on your previous version of your code. Yeah, let me just do another test event now. So get particular book. It will get a particular book now. We can say like a one ID of one, and we need to add one more parameter here like path parameters. Path parameters. So while in Next.js we won't add these things and all, it will be automatically handled. Now we are just mimicking an API gateway. ID will be of let's say one. Yeah, instead of one here, it will be ID. So this ID will be replaced by this one here. Yeah. Now we can see we have two books here, sorry, two tests here. Make sure you select the one you want to run. If I click on test, we can see message not found. Since we don't have a book in that ID, we are getting that message. So our code is okay now. So let's create an API gateway and add it to this Lambda function. So in the search for API gateway and open it up. Click on create API. So in HTTP API, click on build. So let's name our API like books library gateway. You can have any name you want. Next, we will add our routes later. So let this be default staging for now. Create. So now our API gateway has been created. Let's add in our routes. Get books. So this will get all the books. We'll create another route with get books slash ID inside curly braces. This will get a particular book. Then create put slash books. This will create a particular book. We won't have a route to update. We will use the same put command and we will just replace our old book item with the new book item that we have updated. Create delete books slash ID inside curly braces. Yeah. Now that we have our functions, we need to add an integration to it. So if we go on integration here, you can see we haven't added anything. Go to manage integration. We need to create an integration first. So for now, let's choose the getBooks route, and in the integration type, make sure you add in Lambda functions there. And in this Lambda function, you can see a list of ARNs of your Lambda functions. Make sure you are selecting your Lambda function here and then click on create. If we go back to attach integration to routes, we can see AWS Lambda in Get here. We just need to add it to all our routes. So we can see a new box here. So we can just choose an existing integration and select our Lambda here. Attach integration, delete, attach integration, get, books Lambda, attach integration. We have our routes, we have added our integration. So we have connected with AWS Lambda now. So to make sure it is connected to our functions here, just refresh your Lambda function page. You'll be able to see an API gateway here. Yeah, so this makes sure that we are connected to our correct Lambda function. In API gateway, make sure you're selecting this. And here you can see a link here. This is the default endpoint of our API gateway. So this is kind of like the URL that we'll be using to do the CRUD operations with Next.js. So I'm just going to open this in a new tab. We can see message not found here. It's because we don't have the routes correctly here. So if I go to slash books, we will be able to see an empty array. Since we don't have any books inside our data, we are getting empty array, which means that it has connected with the database. So we have built everything correctly here. Let's just add this URI. So make sure you are copying this from the default endpoint here. Control C or copy link address and go to our VS Code. Make sure you are creating an env file here. .env.local AWS underscore API underscore URL will be equal to your URL. Make sure you aren't adding this trailing slash here since we are going to add this in the code in the server action. Make sure you don't have this first slash, otherwise we will get an error in the UI. Yeah, now let's build our server actions. Let me just close other files for now. So before we start, I need to change one thing here. Inside your add page, in the price input field, we need to add one more field here. Step, which will be equal to 0.01. So the user will be able to add up to 2 decimal points. So we need to add the same inside our ID page too. So in price, now that we have done with this, we can create our server actions. So in the parent directory, make sure you are creating a folder named actions. You can have any name here. I'm just going to go with action. We will have two kinds of things here. One with the use server, which we'll be able to use in the use client pages. Next, we will have our server only page, which makes sure our code runs only inside our server and it is not bundled up with the client. First, let's create our server only data. So with that only we will be able to create that use server also. So data.ts import server only hyphen only. First, let's write a function to get the books. So export const get books will be equal to async, and we will cover it with the try catch block. So try catch. So once we get our error, we will just console log it. Let's add some error here. Okay. And then we will throw our error to the UI. So throw new error failed to fetch books. So inside our try catch, let's get in our response. So response will be equal to await fetch. Here we will add our URI here. So we need to use backticks and dollar curly braces. So process dot env dot AWS underscore API underscore URL. After that, a slash and books in small. By default, Next.js will have caching here. Since we will be editing and deleting our data here, we need to get the instant data instead of our cache data. So we need to say we don't need to store any cache here. So for that, cache will be of no store. So it will not store any cache. So after this, we'll write a then promise here with async function which takes in the rest. Curly braces. Let's create our status now, which will be of rest.status, and data which will be await rest.json. Now we need to return this data and the status here. We will have our data and status in our response variable. We'll just need to return it. Return response. Make sure you're spelling it properly. Yeah, now we are going to write a function to get a single book. I'm just going to copy this function again and change it a little bit. Paste it here. Instead of getBooks, let's change to getBook, and it will have an ID inside, will be of type number, and in the URI we need to say slash dollar curly braces ID. So it will fetch that particular ID. So we don't need this catch here. It's fine if we do it like this. So remember, we are sending both the data and the status. So we are not sending just the data there. So we need to write some if conditions there. Yeah, here failed to fetch book. Now let's write a function to create our book. So export const putBook async data, which will be of type iBook. Now let's add our try catch here. So it will have the same catch commands. Error failed to create the book. Now inside our try. So till this we will have everything as same. Yeah, we won't be having this ID. Now this will be sent as a post request. So we need to change that to a put request. For that we need to send some headers here. So method will be put, and let's also add in our header like content of JSON. So headers content type within string content hyphen type application JSON, and we also pass in our body here. So body will be our data. So JSON dot stringify data. Now we need to make sure that the response is okay, that we have created our book. So if the response is not okay, the response dot okay, this will say like that the response is success or unsuccessful. The exclamation makes it like if the response is not okay, we are going to throw an error, throw new error. we're just going to paste in the same here. So I'm just going to change it to a backticks, and yeah, now we just need to return our JSON to the front end. Return await. We are writing an await since we need to get our JSON here. We can also store this JSON inside another variable and send it like we are doing it in the above, but I'm just going to keep it like this. Next, we need to write in our update book function, which will be same like this with an extra parameter of ID. So I'll just copy the putBook and change it to update book. So after our data here, we'll also get an ID with type of number. Now here we need to change the URI to /ID within curly braces. So it will just replace the old data with the new one. We don't have to change anything else. We just need to change this console here. So fail to update the error, fail to, sorry, update the book. Now we have created our update function also. The last thing we have to do is to delete the book, which also will be like the same type. So I'm just gonna copy this update book now and then paste it. So delete book. So we won't have any data here. We'll just add an ID as a parameter, and we won't have the data like the body here. So in method, change this to delete. That's it. Failed to delete the book. Failed to delete the book. That's it. We have written all our code here. But one thing is that this will run only on the server, as we can see here. If you are accessing this within a server component, this will work. But if we have a use client page, it will not work. But we have like two use client pages, which does most of the operations here. Yeah, I will just create another file with the name of actions. In that, we will use the use server, and the client will be able to access that use server function, which will call this function. Yeah, actions.ts. You can have any name you want. I'm just going to use this page as use server. Export const. Let's go like getBook from DB, which is just going to take in a sync, an ID of number, and const response is equal to await getBook from our data file, and we will pass in that ID, and we will just return that particular response, and we will just return the data here instead of the status response.data. Yeah, we don't have to write any try catch here since that are handled inside this data folder, sorry, data file. Now let's do one to create our book. Export const put book in db is equal to async, which is going to get in our book like the data of type iBook interface book from types. So const response is equal to await dot putBook inside our data. We'll just pass in the data here. We will just return that response. And now let's create a function to update it. Export update book in DB will be equal to the same thing here. Font const. We will have one more parameter here, that is our ID. ID will be of type number. Yeah, one more thing is that we don't need this ID actually. If you remember, we don't have an ID route for our put command. So we don't need an update function. We'll just use the putBook command to update it. Yeah, in data.ts also, we don't need this update function. I'm just gonna remove it. Control S, the Control S here. So now we just need to write for our delete book here, which will be like this. I'm just gonna copy this and paste it here. Delete book in DB. You can have any name you want. Here delete book. Make sure you're importing these functions from our data file here. We have server actions ready. Let's just add it to the UI. So I'm just gonna close this, open up page.asx inside of app directory, the home page. If you remember, this page will use the getBooks function inside our data.ts. But if we see here in getBooks, we have catch as no store here. The UI will work fine, but when we build this project, it will say that this cannot be built as dynamically since Next.js will defaultly try to build this as a static site. So we need to say that it is not a static site. Export const dynamic is equal to force hyphen dynamic. Yeah, this will say to Next.js that this is a dynamic page. So this books, we just need to get it from our getBooks. Yeah, await getBooks. So we need to add async here. Yeah, we can see one error is that oh, we just need to import it. I think we will have another. Yeah, you can see that it says that we have a data of any and status of numbers. We need to change that. We can just do that here. We will just cover it in a parenthesis and let's j dot data. Yeah. Now we have our types correctly. Let's add our books first. So add page. I'm just gonna close this page now. So here we just need to change one thing that inside our handle submit function, we just need to do this to do. Like await put book. Make sure since this page is you can see that this uses our use client. If we import it from the data, it will create some error. So make sure you're importing from our actions. Put book in DB, and then we just have to pass in our data here. That is our book. Yeah, now it will be able to create the data inside of DynamoDB. Let's just see the UI now. Yeah, now we can see we have an empty collection here. Let's click on add book. I'm just gonna type a title here into the while Robert Green, and let's say the price as 22.0. Description, I'm just gonna type in the title again. Yeah, add book. Now we can see it in our UI. If I just refresh it, it's still there. But if I click on view book, it won't show there since we haven't updated that. I'm just gonna add another book to see if everything is okay. Add book. Yeah, we can see it works good now. Now let's change our ID page. We have to do two things here. One is for the edit and one is for the delete. Okay, so await. So to edit, we will use the same command that we have used in the add page. And since the ID of the book will be same, it will be overwritten. Put book from actions. Since this is a client page, put book in DB. Okay, I will just pause in our book. Yeah, it says that it can also be null. So we will just make sure that the book exists. And only if the book exists, it will work. Otherwise, it won't. Yeah, in our case, we know that our book will be there, but just in case, let's just add this. That's it. Yeah, the same thing will go here. So if book, yeah, we will await and we will delete book in DB and we will pass in our book.id. So you can pass in your book.id or you can also pass in your params.id. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with params.id. But if you're also using book.id, it's okay. It's all same. Yeah. Oh, here we also have to do one thing that is to fetch our book. Right now we have a static book, right? We have to fetch our book also. So instead of this, we will write an await get book from DB and we will pass in our params.id. Yeah, this will fetch our book. But we need to do one thing here, that is what if the user reaches a page that doesn't exist, like some other ID randomly, then we need to forward that user to the front page, like the home page. So for that, we'll just create a router here too. So we already have a router here. So inside the use effect, once we have fetched the book, we will write an if command here. So fetched book dot data dot message is equal to not found. This we have written in our lambda function to give the message as not found if we don't have the ID. What we are going to do is router dot push to the client, sorry, to the home page. I think we have our code ready. Let's go to the UI. We are seeing an error here. So cannot read a properties of undefined. It cannot read the book it seems. So let's go to this function getBook. Yeah, instead of actions.tsx, instead of returning our res.data, let's just return our res. Here also in delete, let's just return our res. So for delete, it's okay. We are not going to use it, but we will have one error here that fetched book, since it will now have the status and also the data as we can see here. We just need to change this dot data. That's it. I think it will work. Now let's go to the UI. Now we can see how this. I'm gonna change something here. Like let's say this into 15 instead of 13.99. I'm just gonna click on edit book. Now we can see 15 here. I'm just going to delete this book now. View book and delete book. Now we can see we only have the mystery of the night. I think we are done here. The one last thing we will do is let's build this out. Let's see if everything works properly. npm run build. Yeah, we can see that we have few errors here. The error is defined but it's never used. So in app add page.tsx, in line 42. So we haven't used that error. Okay, I'm just gonna console log the error. Okay, I'm just gonna copy this and 5059 think 50 in the id page. Okay, I'm just gonna paste this to here and here also. And this warning is it's telling us that it has a missing dependency. We'll just add this here. So after params.id, we will also add our router here. That's it. Everything else should work now. Yeah, now we can see that our home page is rendered dynamically. Let's just run it npm run start. So if we go to localhost 3000 now, we have our data here same as before. Let's just add a new book now. Add the book. We can see it has added the book now. So I'm just gonna edit this. Gonna add Harry Potter. Okay, edit book. You can see it has edited. Let's try deleting it. Delete this book. You can see it works fine now. I think that's it. So if you like this content, give this video a like and subscribe. And if you want to directly connect your DynamoDB with your Next.js, you can check out this video. Thanks for watching.